All right, joining us, as we told you earlier, in the studio is Senator Olorunnimbe Mamora, and on Skype from Ghana is Dele Momodu, that's a publisher of Ovation magazine. It's good to have you on the show, gentlemen. Well, 17 years of uninterrupted democracy. And when you look at the man Buhari himself, and his struggles over the years, and the metamorphosis of a man from military dictator, according to some people, to a democratic leader, does he symbolize the journey of Nigeria so far, from military rule to democracy, and how far so far?
Absolutely, he does. He symbolizes that transition from the military to civilian administration. And the one thing I always say that we must get it right is the fact that democracy is not a destination. It's a process. And to the effect that we have come this far, the longest we've had, 17 years of uninterrupted. I think that's something that calls for cheer. Yeah, it may not all be, what people expect. The expectations are quite high out there. But then, I think having come thus far, I think so fair.
All right. Now, let me bring in Dele Momodu here. You have been on ground seeing how the democracy of Nigeria had struggled through the years of the military rule, and you've traveled many countries in Africa, as the case may be. If we have to make comparison with what we have now and how far Nigeria has struggled, do you think we are still where we're supposed to be right now?
Well, if truth must be told, we have not been very fortunate politically in Nigeria. We've had series of military interregnum for that purpose, because whenever we got to a dead end, we thought the military had to come in and to crack things for us. Unfortunately, they were not able to do that. But I must say that the last 17 years have shown that we have come of age and we're growing slowly and steadily, but we're not there yet. We still have a lot of miles to cover. If you want to talk about Africa today, you will see that with all our resources, with all our opportunities, with our population, because we are like China in Africa, we should be doing a lot better. But we hope that this government of General Muhammadu Buhari would be able to do something tangible. That is the reason why a lot of people ordinarily did not support him in the past, decided to have what we called a Mandela option, where we have a father figure who can come in and whip us into line, because the general malaise, the indiscipline, the level of corruption was so atrocious that, the only way to go was to have a firm leader, an incorruptible leader like President Muhammadu Buhari in place. And I hope that it would work at the speed of light, because the problems of Nigeria are so big and so pressing that we cannot afford to waste any second. Everything that needs to be done must be done now.
Okay, let me come to you, Senator Mamora. In President Buhari's speech yesterday, he did start with something that is really, really curious when he says it's been a year of triumph. Are you on the same page with him? Looking back at May 29 last year and May 29, 2016, would you say really it has been a year of triumph? And looking at the areas that this government actually planned to tackle, security, corruption, and of course the economy.
Yes, I was going to say that you have to put that statement in context, and it's within the ambit of, yes, what did he promise before coming into office? 3 essential things, to fight corruption, to fight insurgency, and then, of course, to put the economy right. Those are the 3 planks, on which the campaign was premised. And if you look at, yes, we might not have achieved all of that. But seriously speaking, I think two-thirds, have been achieved in terms of fighting insurgency and, of course, really confronting the monster called corruption. Yes, we still have a long way to go in terms of the economy and all that. But so I'm looking at it that within that context, yeah, you could say that, yeah. But again, many people out there may not entirely agree, but we are looking at the realities and comparing what used to obtain and then with what obtains right now. We're not there yet, and that's why I said earlier on that, you see, democracy, it's a process. It's not a destination. You cannot say that, oh, we are there now. No, it's not like that. It's a process. America that has been in it for over 200 years, they are still struggling, they are still battling, they are still having challenges. Britain has been there for 500 or more years, they are still having challenges. So it's a process, and you will continue to renew, you're going to have challenges that you're grappling with and all that. So, and ours is not and cannot be different as well.
Okay. Now, I'm going to put you, both of you gentlemen, on hold a little. Let's have a background to understanding some of this. Now, May the 29th every year is marked as Democracy Day in Nigeria. Now, on Sunday, the country marked 17 years of uninterrupted democracy, a departure from the long years of military rule. Now, let's see how Nigeria attained this height. Let me take you to my wall again to have a basic understanding of how far we have come. Now, after gaining independence in 1960 from Britain, Nigeria fell prey to several coups d'etats and a civil war that Nigerians, so many have made comments that Nigeria has not really recovered fully from the civil war that it fought in the early 60s into the 70s. Then other military governments took over power from one to the other. Now, if we move on now, democracy was briefly restored rather, from 1979 to 1983. That was after 1966 that the military came, and after which self-rule was again interrupted by a new set of juntas in 1983, that time. And if we move on now to have an understanding with the last major military ruler, General Sani Abacha, he died suddenly in 1998. His successor, General Abdulsalam Abubakar, promised a transition to democracy. A new constitution was adopted on May the 5th, 1999. Now, before then, we had, after General Buhari in 1984, we had Badamasi Babangida after that time, and then we had General Sani Abacha, and then General Abdulsalam Abubakar before they went to General Olusegun Obasanjo. Now, elections were held and retired General Olusegun Obasanjo, who had previously governed Nigeria as a military ruler, was elected the new president as a civilian. Now, the military administration in a landmark event handed over power on May 29, 1999, marking the end of almost 30 years of military rule since 1966. Now, this ushered in the Fourth Republic, and May 29 officially became Nigeria's Democracy Day during the Chief Olusegun Obasanjo presidency. What then is the reality at the moment? Let's move on and see what's on ground. Now, Nigeria operated a multi-party system, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo presidency. What then is the reality at the moment? Let's move on and see what's on ground. Now, Nigeria operated a multi-party system with more than 15 political parties. Prominent amongst these parties are the People's Democratic Party, whose 16-year administration was interrupted by the All Progressives Congress success at the 2015 presidential election. Now, let's take a look at Nigeria presidents since that time. Let's move on now. If we, in Olusegun Obasanjo from May 29th, 1999 to May 29th, 2007, and certainly Umaru Musa Yar'Adua from May the 29th, 2007 to May the 5th, 2010, he died not finishing his term as he died in office as president. And he was succeeded by his deputy, the vice that time, President Goodluck Jonathan, who ruled from May 6, 2010 rather, to May the 29th, 2015. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari took over reins of government May 29th, 2015, and this is his first complete year in governance. Now, if we move ahead now, has Nigeria been able to harness the gains of democracy? It's one big question in the minds of so many people. But credible elections, economic growth and development, security, corruption, these are some very areas that so many Nigerians have been asking questions and even answering sometimes. Let's take a look at past elections in the country. Now, Nigerians have gone to the polls 5 times since the democratic government came into place. In 1999, they did. In 2003, they did. In 2007, they did. In 2011 and in 2015. Now, elections since then has been successful in some aspects, if you put it that in context, but not without the challenges of organizing and conducting free, fair and credible elections. Let's look at the country's economic growth and development so far. But before we go into all that, I'd like to ask Senator Mamora here, when it comes to credible elections, that is part of a panacea for a good democratic governance, how would you rate Nigeria in trying to overcome every incremental or every extra elections? How has Nigeria performed in trying to improve the democracy it has?
Well, again, we are not there. There's no doubt we are not there. Because for me, the most important pillar of the democratic process is electoral process. And when I say electoral process, I'm looking at the pre-election phase, the election phase, and the post-election phase. You know, these 3 phases constitute the process in the electoral process in a democracy. Because, you know, you are talking of orderly change. Orderly change, you know, process. That's what democracy is all about. Where people can really be sure and say, yes, we voted for these people. Not a manipulated process somehow. So, but again, gradually, there are things that we still need to do. There are things that we still need to achieve. And I believe that over time, we will continue. Okay, let me
go to Dele Momodu, who is joining us via Skype in Ghana there. So, looking at our checkered history from military to civilian rule or democratic governance, 17 years so far, would you say then that Nigerians, the electorate themselves, have evolved politically, and of course the political class? Where are we today? What would be your rating of you know, democratic evolution so far?
Oh, I would say things have changed a lot since the time of military rule. Nigerians have come to embrace democracy despite its obvious imperfections, especially in Africa, where we were all used to a kind of monarchical rule. Again, I would say the youths in particular have become more involved. In the past, we felt that politics was the exclusive preserve of dropouts, of never-do-wells. But with the coming of social media, people are now able to take their own destiny in their own hands. That we put to effective use last year. People are better educated about the tenets of democracy, but the dividends, where we now have problems, is how to get the dividends of democracy. But it's not enough to elect leaders of your choice. The economy must be very robust. Even in terms of freedom of speech, freedom of association, it's very key that in a democratic setting, we cannot misbehave as if we have military rule. So a lot of us are canvassing for the rule of law, a situation where no Nigerian will be victimized, whether because of his religion or his political affiliation. So these are some of the things that we're looking at.
Okay. Now, let me bring in Senator here. He talked about the issue of freedom of movements, freedom of speech, freedom of association. If we have to relate it to the realities on the ground, do Nigerians feel that freedom? Or let me ask, how free are Nigerians when it comes to their freedom to say anything they want to say, their freedom to associate and so on?
Well, I think to the best of my knowledge, I'm not aware of anyone who has been incarcerated strictly based on his or her opinion or what he or she professes or what he or she believes in. I don't think anybody. So to that extent, well, again, that's part of what we need to experience and enjoy under democracy.
All right. Now, let me take you back to my wall again, generally. Now, Nigeria has the 6th largest gas reserve and the 8th largest crude oil reserve in the world. Yet, an analyst say the economy is grossly underperforming. Now, if we go into the nitty-gritty of all of this, now the major factors accounting for the relative decline of the country's economic fortunes are easily identifiable as lack of focus and visionary leadership, economic mismanagement, and corruption. Those have been some of the complaints analysts have said bedevil the economy one way or the other. Now, some scholars and analysts have said that core democratic values are yet to firmly take root in the polity, and they say the greatest tragedy of the present-day Nigeria is insecurity. Now, the past several years, we had seen Boko Haram attack people in the northeast, and it's one major challenge, or was one major challenge to Nigeria. But certainly, Nigerians are happier now if we make comparison between that time, the last 1, 2, 3, 4 years, and how things are right now when it comes to issue of insecurity. But the issue of security in the Niger Delta is another issue altogether. But let's move on now. But 17 years after, Nigerians are further enmeshed in the deepest crisis of deprivation, with more than 80% of the population living in the most unimaginable penury, hopelessness, and despair and poverty. These are some of the statistics reeled out by agencies and so on. So we ask, has this democracy in any way paid off? One big, very, very big question.
Very big question, Mike.
Now, let me ask generally, apart from, I'm going to ask this question to Dele Momodu. Now, you have listened to people, apart from the big people out there, when it comes to the average Nigerian in the past 1 year, what have you heard them say as to what their hopes are in the past 1 year, and maybe what areas have they not met their hopes, and so on? If they have the complaints they reel out on daily basis, what have you heard Nigerians say?
I can tell you, it's not just about the poor man. Even the privileged class are crying because everything is shooting beyond the roof, as I wrote in my column this day. The economy has to be looked into urgently. If you watch some of the interviews, some TVs on the internet have been conducting with the man in the street, you'll be scared for Nigeria. You cannot afford tomatoes again. Gari is getting too expensive. Rice, our staple diet, is very expensive. Alubosa, onions, and so on and so forth. The ordinary man is crying. We're all crying. And for me, what is the solution? I think the solution is for us to begin to assemble our best brains. We must have a very solid economic team. I remember as young as I was in the time of Chief Obafemi Awolowo, we knew the brain boxes behind his policies. No man can do it alone. So this is the time when we need to declare a state of emergency on our economy and bring on board the best brains who can tell us what to do. You see, we can't be doing all these experimental things we're doing right now. By now, we should have a framework. We should know the direction. We should know the policy. I watched some of the programs yesterday on television, and I was a bit worried that I am yet to see a direction. What we have now are still promises, and people are getting tired. A lot of people are abusing us that you've fostered this change or not. Just yesterday at the airport, I met some Nigerians who told me, Dele, you are one of the reporters. I said, no, relax. We still have 3 years to prove that the change is real, that the change will bring about fruits. So, most
contact with Dele Momodu there, but we'll try to make that as smooth as possible. Let me come back to you, Senator Mamora. The issue of economic team, that is something we keep hearing over and over again. There seems to be that perception out there that this government does not have a strong economic team on ground that can actually, define where we're going economically, and to be able to actually drive this vision that this government has to turn around the economy. I mean, talking about diversification of the economy from monoproduct to agriculture, solid minerals and all of that. What's your take on this?
Well, I've heard people say this often and often, and Mr. President has his own thinking, and I was listening to Femi Additional last night, and he was saying that, well, the president wants to be convinced about certain direction. No doubt we need a very strong, a crack economic team to put things right, and we are not short of brains to really do this for us, and this is what our Nigerians expect. And you will recall that I did say earlier that out of the 3 planks on which the campaign was hinged on, we seem to be doing very well on 2. The economy, which is a major thing, It's not to say that, it is not to say that Mr. President has not really attended to the economy, but people are saying that, there is need to put a little bit more of fire, in the economic team, so that there can be a blueprint and Nigerians can really know what to expect and where we are going. And I think for Nigerians to say this, I think it's in order. And I'm sure Mr. President is considering all the options, and at appropriate time, this will be made known to the people.
All right. In his speech yesterday, he mentioned the issue of the need to run an inclusive budget, an inclusive government generally. If you talk about talking about an inclusive system, certainly the people are brought in here to own everything that is being promised and is being projected generally. Do Nigerians feel this ownership of the budget that is coming and the projections generally, the projects that are going to be reeled out? Do Nigerians feel ready to own these things and be part of what the government is trying to do?
Well, I think Nigerians, they feel the need to be part of it. And don't forget that one of the very first things that Mr. President said in his speech was to salute the resilience of Nigerians and to also appeal to Nigerians to be part of the whole thing. Because, if Nigerians don't take ownership, if Nigerians don't get involved, we cannot really get to that, have the goals that have been mapped out there. So, Mr. President is right to in his appeal to Nigerians to be involved. And again, you see, one thing that this government, particularly Mr. President, as an individual, has is what I call the trust bank. People believe in Mr. President. They trust him because he came on board with courage, with integrity, with hope. And that was why, the attempts by the Labour to go on the streets did not work. But that trust must not be taken for granted.
Indeed.
That is the truth.
Yes.
So he's not taking it for granted in any way.
You did talk about 2/3 success rate.
Well, so to speak.
Looking at corruption, there are many people who would disagree with you on that. Many believe, a number of people, let me not say many, believe that this anti-corruption war has largely been one-sided. What do you have to say about that? Is he going about this anti-corruption war, properly? And then again, is this government too fixated with fighting corruption to the detriment of the economy itself, which is even more important to the ordinary man on the street, as some would say?
Mr. President is not fixated on issue of corruption. But the reality is that which is, a kind of song, if you like, right from the electioneering campaign period, he's always said something, which is, if Nigeria does not kill corruption, corruption will kill Nigeria. So it means that we have come to really appreciate the reality of that monster that which we all need to fight and put it down. Or else it will just be like, turning the tap on and then mopping the floor. So we just have to deal with it. And that is what Mr. President has been doing. Well, I've heard this oftentimes, it's one-sided, it's selective. It's a statement of convenience. What I know is that there are low-hanging fruits. There are cases of corruption that are just there, staring at you, that you just need to grab first. And that's the approach that Mr. President is giving to it. And don't forget again, Mr. President is not the one, in fact, the executive as a whole is not the one that will get conviction. Conviction can only come from the court. And that is why the judiciary, through the court, also has to be on board in the whole process. It must buy into that process. And I think we are moving on.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, let me bring in Dele Momodu here with us from Ghana. The lines have been restored now. Now, Dele, you are one of those who understand how much Nigerians are doing out there outside the shores of Nigeria. You talked about best brains earlier on. In Liberia, for instance, you were there, you were taking round some of the formation there and seeing how Nigerians have been doing to what they're doing to assist the government sustain the social fabrics and the economy there. Gambia, the same thing, Congo and all of that. Now, when it comes to putting all the intellectuals, putting all the best brains back to matching them with the natural resources Nigeria has, it hasn't really paid off. What do you think is different with Nigerians performing out there and performing back home?
It's still this question of not putting the right people in the right positions. And of course, the issue with our federal character, the quota system, the zoning system. More often than not, it does not allow for us to have the best brains available to us. And a leader has to think outside the box, has to search well enough. In a population of 170 million, trust me, you have some of the best brains in the world. As you mentioned, I've been out there, especially in Africa. In Liberia, the Nigerian military was controlling 10 out of 15 countries in that country. There are 15 countries. Nigerian soldiers were controlling 10 out of them. In Sierra Leone, it was the same thing. In fact, at the stage, Professor Adeleke, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, was the head of UNAMSIL, the United Nations mission in Sierra Leone. And we went in there as far back as 2001, and you could not believe the popularity of Nigeria. Everybody was grateful and thankful to Nigeria for helping to bring down the warlords in Sierra Leone. So everywhere you go to South Africa, we're doing great things. Some of the corporations there are headed by Nigerians. Go to New York, go to Britain. But back home, it's all about the governor must select this man before his appointment can be approved. He has to go through party caucuses and all that. So for me, we just have to do something more practical and more sensible. Otherwise, what we're going to have is just recycling, the same old mess. Nigeria today is desperate for action. And there are people out there who can make things happen. Let us get them. Especially, I'm very worried about the economy. I have no question that President Buhari has the capacity to sort out the issue of security. You cannot be an army general without being able to do that. And he's been one of our best. In the area of incorruptibility, everybody knows that President Buhari is a man of modest means, and he is not innately ambitious as to say he wants, to acquire the whole world. So we're fortunate in that area. But how come this does not translate to a prosperous economy? This should be a matter of concern for this government, because you cannot have a man as frugal a man as careful, a man as incorruptible as Buhari, and then Nigerians will still suffer. It is worrisome. And if care is not taken, we will lose the entire momentum. In 1 year, you cannot believe what people are saying out there. And I believe that President Buhari and his team, they have what it takes, they can do it, but they have to see it as a matter of urgency.
Okay, let me come in here then. The Nigerian question, is this where the issue of the Nigerian question should come in? The issue of true federalism, restructuring of the federal system in such a way that the average Nigerian actually benefits from this good, positive profile that President Buhari has, for example.
Yes, I agree with you. I always like to use Ghana as an example. Every time I travel out of Ghana and I come back within 2 weeks, I'll take the airport. What does it take to fix an airport? An airport is the first point of contact for most people traveling to a country, especially if you are coming from abroad. Yet, in the last 1 year, we have not been able to fix our elevators. We have not been able to install ordinary lifts. I'm telling you, I still passed through the airport yesterday. The whole place is still the same old mess, and people complain. You arrive in Nigeria, and the first thing that welcomes you is tension. We complained about it in the past, and we're still complaining in an era of change. If you come to Ghana right now, you will not believe I counted the number of immigration desks yesterday. I thought I was in Washington, D.C. 25 of them. Go and look at ordinary landing cards, the immigration forms. You have to stand up in front of immigration now, and they just give you this paper that looks so dirty and uninviting. So these are some of the little things that we can fix even without worrying. So what I believe we should do is we need to have true federalism. I think there is too much power at the center. See what Governor Mamora is doing in Lagos at the moment. You'll be very impressed that within 1 year, you had a government, a state government, that has been able to show us positively that it has a sense of direction and mission. And this is what we need to do, activate and actualize all over Nigeria.
All right, Dele, we'll come back to this. Let me bring in Moses Omokena now to give us a perspective as to what Nigerians are saying on social media as far as democracy is concerned. Moses, good morning.
Very happy democratic day. Well, technically it was yesterday, but yeah.
Yeah, it was yesterday, but we're still in the euphoria.
In the mood.
Yay, look who's in the mood. Okay, so the hashtag democracy, has been buzzing social media timelines. And of course, Nigerians didn't spare us their thoughts. Let's find out. Very first tweet, we can have it. Yes, comes from Atiku Abubakar, and he says, as we celebrate Democracy Day, let us remember the sacrifices of everyone who paid the supreme price for opposing military rule. Yes, respect to our heroes past. And Mr. Kacha Naking says, please, all right, now this tweet is very interesting tweet, has really gone popular over time, recently, on Twitter. And, it gives a graphical survey of the present administration. Now it says, please rate the present admin performance after 1 year in office. Now, 9%, as you can see here, feel that President Muhammadu's administration is very good. 37% believe that they need more time, to redeem the promises made. And 43% believe that the administration is very poor and lack direction. And 11% feel that it's fair enough somewhat. And of course, you can see 177 people engaged in that vote. Now, some social critics on one hand believe that this is not enough, to give a nationwide projection. Social critics, on the other hand, also believe that, there's some level of truth in this survey. Now, moving on still, we have Richard Thompson. He says, apart from war and corruption, Muhammadu Buhari had done nothing but to increase the standard of living. Hashtag Democracy Day. Well, let's hope that Richard will be singing very soon. And Online says, the recent spate of attacks will not distract us from engaging leaders in the region in addressing Niger Delta issues. Of course, quoting President Muhammadu Buhari's there, hashtag Democracy Day. And our sister network, NTA, says, Democracy Day, we are committed to providing job opportunities to 500,000 teachers and 100,000 artisans across the nation. Of course, quoting President Buhari there. And of course, they went further to say the process of recovery of stolen assets can be tedious and time-consuming. Of course, it's the president making a speech there. And finally, from Zara Musa, she says, "Happy Democracy Day, Nigeria. May President Muhammadu Buhari succeed." And a big amen to that, because of course his success is all our success. All right, now I want to find your thoughts on this. Now, some social critics believe that you have the concept of democracy, and others believe that you have the concept of the Nigerian democracy. What is a Nigerian democracy?
Well, I wouldn't want to speak within that context. Democracy is democracy.
Yeah.
It's an international thing, and it's a process. Yes, we might not have moved as far as people expect, but surely and steadily we are on course.
Okay. Well, let's hope that the hashtag Nigerian democracy will be the new yardstick for defining what true democracy really means. All right.
All right.
See you guys
Thank you,
soon.
Moses.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye.
All right. Now, we still have Dele Momodu with us on Skype from Ghana. Let me come to you on this, on the issue of Nigeria being a big brother. Now, Nigeria has shown itself in every aspect of life in the past decades as to leading Africa in so many areas. Now, one way or the other, the past few years, people have, from what we hear people say, Nigeria lost its place in the Committee of Nations and even in its leadership of the African continent. Now, how do we bring back the leadership role Nigeria plays on the African continent, and in true terms, Nigerians feeling that pride in that kind of leadership Nigeria is trying to attain?
Well, I disagree with those who say we've lost our leadership role or position in Africa. That is impossible. Nigeria is still the big brother of Africa. Everybody defers to us. I can tell you, in spite of our imperfections, wherever you find Nigerians, you feel the vibes of our greatness as a people and as a nation. I remember visiting President Jacob Zuma in South Africa, and the first thing he told me then was, "Dele, the day Nigeria gets it right, the whole of Africa will get it right. We are all waiting on Nigeria to get things right." And I'm very sure of that. If you go anywhere today in Africa, but in Nigerian music, they are looking at our energy, and there are so many things. In terms of our contribution,
Okay, we can hardly hear Dele Momodu, but we will try to reestablish clarity there. Now, it's been a year since Muhammadu Buhari assumed office as Nigeria's president, and members of Nigeria's House of Representatives have been speaking on his achievements and the challenges he faces. National Assembly correspondent Joke Adisa quotes the lawmakers as saying economic reform and the implementation of the 2016 budget are critical to mitigating the hardship currently facing the citizens.
In the course of his campaign in 2015, Muhammadu Buhari promised to bring positive change to the country and its people if voted into power. Buhari vowed to right the wrong. In 2015, Muhammadu Buhari promised to bring positive change to the country and its people if voted into power. Buhari vowed to right the wrongs wrought on Nigeria by the People's Democratic Party for 16 years. At a time insurgents held the country by the jugular, Buhari vowed to rout Boko Haram, improve power supply and create jobs. 1 year down the line, reactions are mixed about the administration's performance so far. These lawmakers cutting across the two main political parties in the National Assembly differ on the president's scorecard.
This government, if I'm supposed to rate it, has done very, very, very well. Biggest problem in Nigeria was anti-corruption. Money that should have gone into education was stolen. Money that should have gone into health was stolen. Money that should have gone into infrastructure was stolen. Money that was... So what do you want to do if you don't deal with the fundamental problem?
The subsidy was not only removed, but Nigerians today are suffering because the price of fuel has moved from 86 naira to 146 naira, meaning that a difference of 60 naira was added to the original price of fuel. So, and subsidy between you and I is not up to 30 naira. So if you are taking away subsidy, the fuel shouldn't be up to 130 naira. That's exactly what I'm saying.
But they agree the administration has decimated terrorists and they acknowledge its fight against corruption.
He has already launched his major agenda of fight against corruption. Corruption has been a cankerworm that has eaten deeply in the root of government and governance in Nigeria.
The promises that were made during the campaigns really have not been met, and to a very large extent. But of course, when you look at the security situation in the country, you agree with me to some extent we are having a headwind.
I believe nobody will say there's nothing to point out. Even by bringing peace back to Northeast, back to Borno and my constituency, we have something to point at.
On the economic front, the government has repeatedly lamented the enormous debt it inherited, as well as the fall in the international price of crude, Nigeria's main economic stay. As at the end of the first quarter of 2016, Nigeria's gross domestic products crashed to minus 0.36%. But the government says it is not to be blamed, insisting it inherited an economy in recession. The recent increase in the pump price of petrol is one policy government says it was forced to take in its attempt to reposition the economy. The perennial queues at petrol stations and attendant inconveniences may have forced majority of Nigerians to buy into the price increase. Joke Adisa, TVC News, Abuja.
All right. Well, you heard that report there. We still have Senator Olorunnimbe Mamora with us in the studio. We have on Skype from Ghana, Dele Momodu, publisher of the Ovation magazine. Now let's come to you, Senator. Here, some of your colleagues and former colleagues in the National Assembly have come up with different assessment of what the government is doing generally. But if we have to put things in the whole, how in the last 1 year has the National Assembly complemented the government or otherwise in ensuring people benefit from the dividends of democracy?
Well, we must not forget that the National Assembly started on a shaky note, particularly with respect to the emergence of the leadership, of both houses. But then, well, I'm not sure if one can conveniently say that has been put, laid to rest. Absolutely. I don't think so. When you have that kind of situation, you will still have some residual effect. But having said that, I think in spite of whatever, the National Assembly has been supportive. Take, for example, the list of appointees sent to the Senate, in particular. There was no dilly-dallying in any way. The Senate, legitimized, confirmed the various appointments made by Mr. President that required the confirmation of the Senate without any delay. So to that extent, that is the kind of cooperation that is expected between the legislature and the executive. And of course, in terms of representation, the National Assembly, both houses, National Assembly, they came up with issues filtered from the people. Of course, the issue of in the need for palliatives or safety nets to be put to cushion the effect of the economic hardship which people are generally going through. And of course, the issue of security, insecurity, particularly insurgency and all that. All these are issues that have taken the front burner as brought before both houses of the National Assembly. So this is the kind of synergy and cooperation expected, between the executive and the legislature. So I think, in spite of the shaky start, the National Assembly has not done badly.
Okay, let me go to Dele Momodu. Yes, indeed, it was a shaky start between the 8th Assembly and the Executive. Dele Momodu, do you believe that the National Assembly as it is, and indeed the other arms of government, talking about the judiciary, are actually on the same page, executive, legislature, and the judiciary? And then I'd like you to address the issue of building strong institutions as against strong men. As where we are today, do you think the ingredients of building strong institutions are there for us to take advantage of as quickly as possible, so that when this president is no longer there, it will, we'll have a template for what governance or democracy should be for Nigeria?
Yes. First, I must say that I'm very pleased with the conduct of the National Assembly so far. They have not been antagonizing the executive arm of government. Of course, there have been a few skirmishes, but by and large, every Nigerian today knows that Nigeria is in a kind of situation that must be corrected. And so, the people are also holding our leaders accountable, unlike in the past, when we allowed a free rein and people could do whatever they liked. Today, whether you are Senate President, you are Speaker, House of Representatives, you are the President of Nigeria, or the judiciary in general, people are talking. People are challenging them, and as such, everybody is beginning to sit up. On the issue of building institutions, for me, that is very key. And even in the fight against corruption, I've said that in the past, that it is not every corruption that starts with being greedy. Sometimes it starts from need before graduating to greed. The need of the people, when in a nation nobody can survive on his normal salary. You want to rent a house, you are asked to pay 2-3 years rent in advance. Are you going to get your salaries in advance? You want to buy a car, it's the dream of every man, especially where public transport is sloppy. You want to buy a car, whether a jalopy or not, your salary cannot make it happen. So we need to begin to look at the way it is done elsewhere. There is no developed nation. Yes.
All right, Dele, thank you. It would have been so nice for us to keep talking about different aspects of this democracy, but time is not on our side right now. But thank you very much for talking to us on TVC Breakfast. Thank you.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you so much.
All right. And Senator Olorunnimbe Mamora, thank you for coming on the program as well.
Thank you very much for
inviting.
inviting.
We wish Nigeria well, and we wish you all well as well.
Thank you very much.
Indeed, unfortunately, not enough time to touch on
Don't forget
other
what that
issues.
guy said.
Yes.
Just a little more time.
A little more time. All right, on that note, we want to say thank you very much to all our viewers.